What type of insurance is right for me? That is a question that I have gotten several times, and I want to address that now. What I am going to talk about today is the difference between large group, small group, individual plans, Medicare, and then Medicaid and government-sponsored plans. A large group plan is one for groups typically over 100 employees. And these plans, you need a detailed census and sometimes claims history, if at all available. And those plans tend to be custom done. So groups that have over 100 employees do have some additional bargaining power when it comes to quoting. And giving your agent as much information as possible is going to give you the very best chance to getting the very best quote and the insurance that's the very best fit for your employees. Now, for small group, that tends to be groups that are under 100 employees. Typically, this segment also needs a census. So a census involves the employee's name, their date of birth, their zip code. We also need information on the dependents. So this can be a frustrating piece for some small groups because they do not have the dependent information for their employees. If it's your very first quote, your virgin group, as we say in the insurance industry, don't worry about getting the dependent information. Focus on getting the employee information, and we can add those dependents at a later date. However, if you already have insurance and we're comparing costs for your insurance that does currently have the dependent information, meaning that the insurance company that is currently active obviously has the dates of birth, the socials, the addresses for all of the dependents, as well as for the employees, we need that same information. Because small businesses tend to not have as many systems and as many ways to store data as larger businesses, this can cause some frustration. So in those instances where it is causing additional frustration, I tend to ask for a broker of record letter. So if your current broker is not supplying you with the services and the rates and the marketing information or the market information that you need to make a good decision, it may be time just to change brokers. So what happens when I get a broker of record authorization or a broker of record change letter, that gives me the power. It removes handcuffs from me to access all the information I need from your current insurance carriers to access all of that dependent information. So I'm not having to ask HR and go through the weeds and make sure that it all matches and that all the quotes are as accurate as possible. If you feel comfortable with your broker, a lot of times this process is seamless. It's very easy. It's when there is a new relationship or there's missing information and information is not given to that new broker that some pitfalls can come into play. So the minimum requirement for a group is going to be 2, to have at least 2 people for a group. Now, many insurance carriers limit this to at least 1 W-2'd non-spousal employee. So you have the entrepreneur, the business owner, the person that set up the LLC, the sole proprietorship, the incorporation, and they may not be on payroll, okay? They may just be drawing funds from the profits of the business. Now, they hire someone, they put that person on as a W-2'd employee. Now, years ago, we used to see a lot of business owners put their spouses on, and sometimes what happens is the business owner adds their spouse as a employee, and spouses tend to be very involved in small businesses, especially in the beginning, and maybe helping with bookkeeping or some other sort of employment. And that employee is legitimately working. It's not to say that they're not legitimately working. However, some insurance carriers do require a non-spousal W-2. So you have to at least have the business owner that we can show the insurance company that is an active business owner on the corporate docs, on the LLC docs as a president or an owner, a shareholder, a majority shareholder in the partnership. And then obviously with payroll, there's documentation we can show to prove payroll. The reason for all of this is that small group tends to have underwriting that involves this sort of documentation. So when we go in to enroll the company, the insurance company wants to confirm that it is a legitimate company that's operating with payroll and legitimate corporate documentation and business documentation. So oftentimes what is required is a quarterly wage statement from the states in which you have employees. So every state is going to have a different quarterly wage report. And this is because each state has different quarterly taxes. So you may have an employee in Arizona and in California and in Texas. Each of those states are going to have a different quarterly wage report. And those reports prove to the insurance company that you do have active employees, you are filing taxes with the state, and you are a legitimate business. Now with large group, typically payroll documents and showing payroll taxes and quarterly reports typically are not required. Usually a detailed census is all that's required, as well as employer applications, employee applications, or feeds, electronic feeds that go from your either payroll system or online enrollment system over to the carrier. But with small group, there certainly is more documentation required. And this is because there is more risk to the insurance company with smaller businesses. Also because there is more legislation around small group than there is with large group. Now, individual plans is a single household. It's a single person all by themselves, married couple, or a married couple with children. Those are the scenarios where you would have an individual plan. And in those scenarios, you can go to healthcare.gov or local exchange, your state exchange, to request insurance and request a subsidy from your state. You can also go directly to a broker. I work with many brokers who help people in this space, and when my friends and family come to me and ask exactly what to do when they need individual health insurance policy, I always recommend a broker. Having a broker by your side when you are submitting forms and payments, premiums to an insurance company, it's always better to have an advocate. The cost is going to be exactly the same. Whether you go to the insurance company directly, you go through the exchange, or you go through a broker, all of the costs are going to be 100% the same. The costs depend on your age and where you live, as well as your income. Period. End of story. Now, the premiums depend on your age and your zip code, and sometimes your premiums can be reduced because they're being subsidized by the state you live in. And the subsidy depends on how much your household income is. If you want to know more about subsidies, I made a ton of videos around all the different types of subsidies, and I will link that down below. If you can't find it, you can also shoot me a message and I will direct you to the correct videos to go over that and any additional documentation that you may need. And when the topic of individual plans comes up, sometimes we get into dental and vision. Now, you can add dental and vision onto your individual plans. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense because of the cost of the dental plan. Usually in a group setting, we get pretty massive discounts on premiums for dental and vision insurance, and then buying it individually doesn't always make sense. However, some people do just like having it, just like knowing that they do have it and continue to buy it based off that. Next, we get into Medicare. Medicare is available for those 65 and over, as well as some people who are disabled can be eligible for Medicare as well. Now, along with Medicare, many people like to get additional insurance on top of the government Medicare plan. And again, I highly recommend getting a broker throughout this process. There are so many nuances that come along with Medicare, not only for your area, your region, and your personal circumstances. It also comes down to getting prescription drug coverage, sharing prescription drug information with your broker to make sure that you are getting the exact coverage that you need. Also, brokers will take the extra time to explain how the plans are going to work. Now, you can go direct to an insurance company. The rates are going to be exactly the same whether you go direct to an insurance company or through a broker. With a broker, you tend to have someone as your advocate, just like I talked about with the individual plans. You have an advocate that's helping you through the paperwork, helping you through the submitting of premiums, documenting every step of the way, showing that you submitted paperwork on time, showing that you submitted premiums on time. It's just nice to have someone that has experience with the paperwork and with setting up these plans, especially with Medicare, because you have Part A, Part B, Part D, and all the ins and outs of HMO versus PPO, and it is extremely confusing for people who have never done it before. So definitely get someone to help you through that process. Now, I do have some people that start out with individual plans and they go on to the exchange, and during that process, they end up on a Medi-Cal or a government-sponsored health plan. And this is done because people that make below a certain percentage of the federal poverty level will be kicked automatically into a government-sponsored plan. I also made videos on this. These were in my subsidy series. If you have any questions or you want to be pointed in the right direction, I can certainly help point you in the right direction, and I do have links to those videos down below as well. So we have large group health plans and insurance. We have small group health plans and all different types of insurance. There are individual plans for households who want to go and get insurance outside of their employer, or maybe their employer doesn't offer insurance. You can go and get an individual health plan. There's also Medicare available for those who are 65 and over, or sometimes people with disabilities do qualify for Medicare. We also have Medicaid and other government-sponsored plans. They're an option, and of course, subsidies. And that wraps up all of the different types of insurance that are available to groups and individuals, government subsidized, different subsidies. Hopefully you found that information useful. Thank you for hanging out until the end. I have a link down below where you can fill out a very short questionnaire to schedule a 30-minute phone call with me. I look forward to speaking with you, and we'll see you next time.